If you look up how to start a business and you take advice from a random blog that shows up first, some website that does content, you're not necessarily going to get the meat and potato. It's harmful for people to take business advice from somebody who's never started a business and is just being negative. It's tricky, but who you take advice from is so critical. And it's something I spend a huge deal of time figuring out for myself.
You're listening to Ecomonics, a Debutify podcast, your resource for one-of-a-kind insights into the world of e-commerce and business in the modern age. This is Joseph. I'll be presenting a wealth of industry knowledge from interviews with successful business people and our own state-of-the-art research. Your time is valuable, so let's go. John Crestani, it is good to have you here on Ecomonics. How you doing today? How you feeling?
Dude, pretty good. Just got back from doing stuff with my personal trainer and had a knee injury, so working on recuperating it.
Oh, did you did you have the personal trainer prior to that, or was that somebody you picked up to help you with that recovery?
A little bit of that and a little bit of because I'm getting old now. I'm like 33 years old.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm 31. I took pride in like the first 10 gray hairs that spouted, but now they're
Yeah.
starting to develop en masse and they're forming a union up there. So, over time they're becoming a little bit less appreciated, but I'll do my best to grow into it. So, first question. This is the economics tradition, and it's always great to be able to look into what my guests are doing and see what they're up to. And you certainly have a lot to bring to the table. So, take it away. Tell us who you are and what do you do.
Sure. So my name is John Crestani. I'm running a software and online training company. We do, my business. I have two people working for me. We do roughly $6 million per year. We are on TV every night, late night infomercials. So that's how we get our initial customers in. Is we're paying all the TV companies, like 100,000 a week or whatever to get advertising space, and then we are selling stuff on that advertising space. And the goal is to make more money from our customers and from the sale of our software than that we can. And the goal that we're working towards is we're working towards finding product market fit in software. So I'm just hiring a lot of tech people, data engineers, developers right now to help us figure that out.
Excellent. So I'm going to get to question two, which is just about your evolution. I know your backstory about how your the agency you worked for. So I want to hear that story, but I gotta stop on you guys being on TV because we of all the people that I've talked to, typically it's about the transitioning into the more contemporary. Once in a while, I get to talk to somebody who has their hands in a more classic mediums. Lately, I talked to somebody who's big on retail and in store. So, what was the drive to find this advertising space and on television, and you just make sure that this was a viable return on investment?
Great question.
Thank you.
So, I mean, what I view my role as in just being an entrepreneur is really it's just pattern recognition. It's once we can get people to do anything. We can hire people to do anything. But as an entrepreneur, we need to see where things are going, where the puck is going, because we need to skate there to meet it. Um, and what I saw happening, I'd started when I started my info product business because I started teaching people how to do marketing a few years ago, and that's how a lot of people know me. I have a bunch of people that follow me on YouTube and all that stuff now. I've seen me on TV, etc. But I'd started in 2016, 17 advertising on YouTube to reach people. I'd pay YouTube and then I'd sell things to make money. Now on YouTube, I started and I was paying for each person to see my ad. I was paying 2 to 3 cents. Okay. Now, over time, over the course of a few years, and what I saw, at towards the end of 2019 was that my costs had gone up from spending 2 cents to reach a person to 28 cents to reach a person. And that was driven largely by the fact that this training industry, this industry for people wanting, some sort of training and some sort of like self-employed career or whatever, just blew up in that time. People call them gurus, online gurus, real estate gurus, they're stock trading gurus, and they all advertise on YouTube now. So I went from a marketplace of, it was like me, Ty Lopez, and maybe a dozen other people advertising on YouTube, in my space, to there being about 25,000 people in 2020. And I just kind of knew, I saw where things were going. And the other thing I felt uncomfortable with was, because of this increased cost, that was just destroying, my business margins. What I'd also what also came with that was, because of this increased competition, you increasingly got bad actors, people that would, in order to make back their cost of advertising, they would do marketing in a hyper aggressive, non compliant way, borderline financial fraud, and in some cases, just pure financial fraud, in order to make back the cost of advertising. So I didn't feel comfortable with where I saw things going, and I didn't want to necessarily fight that battle. So what I because there's 25,000 people, right? And they're all just hungry wolves, and it's the Wild West. But I saw TV, and I knew TV was a proven medium for reaching people, obviously, but somehow everybody in my industry, in what's called the business opportunity industry, had forgotten about TV. So I said, well, I know it works. There's no competition. And then on YouTube, I'm dealing with, tons of Why don't I just try TV? And people have more money on TV. It's an older demographic than YouTube. So I said, and I had a buddy around me who also said, hey, you want to do a TV ad with me? $250,000. Do you have $250,000 lying around? I said, you know, yeah, I do. And yeah, I'm interested in doing TV advertising. So I took it seriously, and I launched a few TV ads, until we got profitable. And here we are today. It's a pretty good space to be in, having no competition. It's kind of crazy. I like it.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly no competition in regards to your space. I don't know exactly what time the infomercials are on. I guess, well, you said like a late night, so I
A
haven't
late
tuned
night,
into a late night
yeah,
infomercial in
midnight
some
to
time.
8
Yeah,
a.m.
yeah. And the last time I tuned into, I was watching TV that late. It was, oh man, it was a while ago. It was those ads where you would see pictures of people on the beach and have a phone call for a good time. That was like the last recollection I have of it, which does lead me to what I think is a fair question here about, because you say that it's a proven method, and I think, and television is certainly a proven medium, but I think the perspective on infomercials is precarious. So, in your experience, what infomercials or what ads that you had modeled previously before you got there did you look at as metrics of success? And conversely, if you'd seen ones that went awry, I'd like to hear those too.
Great question.
Thank
Great
you.
question. And it's a great question because you're assuming that, and obviously something about marketing. You're assuming that I modeled my infomercial after others, which I did 100%. In
Mm.
fact, I looked at the top three infomer. Sorry, well, I looked at the top three business opportunity infomercials closely, but for about a dozen, I downloaded them, and I would just watch them, and I would write down every single word, every single sentence, um, who was speaking every sentence of about a dozen different infomercials in my space, to model myself after them. And in fact, the script that I wrote for my infomercial was very similar. Like, just, like, take another infomercial and just change out a few words. Um, and that's what I did. Another way that I validated that infomercials were an effective form of advertising in my industry was I actually reached out to every single person who had run a business opportunity infomercial. I figure, what do I have to lose? Right? So many folks are scared to do outreach, whether it's for sales or marketing or for hiring or for people are just so scared of cold outreach nowadays, and that's something I don't really understand. And I encourage everyone to always do cold outreach, because it's oftentimes the fastest way to get to where you're going. And in this case, I reached out to a bunch of people who had successful infomercials, who had made tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars, and one of them got back to me. In fact, sorry, two. I had conversations with, and they told me they were retired from the industry, and they just told me everything. They retired, they were retired, and they just said, "Hey, yeah," and they told me every number that I should be at, where I should be advertising, and it wasn't hard. I didn't have to pay anybody anything. I just had to not be scared and reach out to the people that would have the fastest way in. And for them, the benefit for them in talking to me was they understood, they were in the business of marketing because they loved it. So talking to somebody else who was proactive, who's doing interesting things in marketing, um, and was coachable. I think that's a very important thing, is just being coachable. And because they didn't need to spend their time with me, they didn't need to go to lunch or spend hours on calls with me, but for them, I'm such an enthusiastic marketer that people love that, and they want to be surrounded. They get the enthusiasm, so they'll spend the time with me for free and give me tips that have been making me millions of dollars. So yeah, I'm really fortunate, or lucky, if you want to call it that.
So one observation that I would say, and I can speak to this just from my own position, definitely in like the journeyman's setting, which is that reaching out to somebody, the concern isn't that they might not answer, because that's just okay. Well, nothing happens. The concern is actually if they do answer, and then I
Yeah,
don't have maybe like good enough questions ready, or I'm not going to. I'm about to turn this interaction with them, and I'm going to get like a bronze medal out of it when I could get gold or
yeah,
platinum. So I
yes.
think an own lack of our own self drive and our own clear direction. Um, I think that might actually be the reason why. Sometimes, like a successful contact might actually be the reason that people are scared, and not necessarily, a rejection or even nothing at all.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that, and I'd say if you go even deeper down, a lot of success with business has to do with the confidence, and the belief, and but belief is great when the times are good, but it's not good when the times are bad. I'd say faith is a really powerful word in my vocabulary, because faith is about having faith in what you're doing doesn't just permeate when the times are good, but when the times are bad, that is when faith is most important. So having faith is super big. I would say, just as I said before, confidence, and furthermore, everything I do with a sense of urgency. I'm not just like, hey man, do you have time sometime? Maybe we can kind of talk. Look,
Hmm.
I'm flexible with your schedule. When I do things, when I'm looking to talk to somebody, I reached out to a few billionaires earlier this week because I'm trying to hire a data engineer right now. But the way I reach out has a time constriction, to or somewhat of a time constriction. I'm saying, hey, I'm hiring a data engineer right now, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for your interview. Now, these guys are billionaires. They probably won't see my message, but the point that it's timely, it has some relation to time, means that if they are going to respond, they'll respond sometime sooner rather than later. And so I'd say what I don't know. I'm coming up with this on the spot, but I'd say confidence, faith, and urgency is something I bring to really all of my relationships.
Hmm. One thing I like to share into that ether, this was a revelation that somebody had said to me about the difference between motivation and determination. Whereas if someone doesn't have the will to do something, they say, "Well, I'm not motivated today," and I mean, even just last week, I'm sure I've said that a number of times. But when somebody said that determination, that really set in because it made me
Mm,
realize that if I have a goal, I'm going to get to this goal, and not to be too hyperbolic or die trying. This is what I'm going to do. I see this in my future. I'm going to make it to that point.
yeah, yeah. It where it gets really difficult is we have a range. We have a normal range of emotional comfortability. And whenever things go outside, some people have narrower ranges, some people have wider ranges. And whenever we, as entrepreneurs, especially, or people starting our own businesses, get outside of that range of comfortability, and anything can do it. It can be that you just spent $1,000 advertising your new product that you came up with on Amazon, and nobody's buying it, and you lost all that money, and you're stuck with all this inventory, and you don't have any money left, and you feel like the world is imploding because you can't continue on with your business anymore. Or another thing that could take you out of your range of emotional comfortability is, your dog got sick. Another thing could be your boss yelled at you. Another thing could be that your mom wants you home for Thanksgiving, and and you want to start an online store and take advantage of Black Friday, but you have to kind of give that time up to because your mom is guilt tripping you about another Thanksgiving or something. Um,
Mm,
all of those things take us outside of our range of comfortability. And when we get outside of our range of comfortability, all of these things break down. The determination, the enthusiasm, the optimism, all the motivational quotes that people are reading to try to push them through starting their own business, and getting and that is where all the problems happen. Imagine a stock price for a second. Stock prices, when they crash, they don't it's not it's not a slow downward trend. It's like a spike. And that's what happens when we're
mm,
starting a business. It's like, it's the same thing with like breaking up with a girlfriend or a boyfriend. But when you stop a business, when you break up with a business that you're trying to accomplish, you go back to starting from zero. And so many people do that. That one thing that takes them outside of their level of emotional comfortability, boom, they're back to zero. And that's that is the thing more entrepreneurs, I believe, need to be aware of, because I haven't made my money from, you know good rolls in the craps table. I've made my money from
mm.
the follow through. I've made my money from the long term. It hasn't been the decisions as much as it's been the follow through, and the long term follow through that's made me. I could use so many examples, but we are living with the internet. It is exponential. Everything is exponential, and our brains are trained to think linearly. Okay, you do work for an hour, you get paid $10. You work another hour, you get paid $20. You get, over time your salary goes up. Over time, it's linear progression. Our brains aren't trained to think in what the world is made for nowadays. If you're starting an internet or a stock trading business, which is the returns on internet and stock trading businesses are exponential. It happens exponentially. It happens super fast. You go from 1,000 subscribers one month, you work 6 months to get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, but then the next 6 months you get 100,000. That's not a linear progression. So it's so unnatural for us to think this way. That's why we've got to be even more aware of what's actually going on in our brain and our emotional state. And this even goes back to Eastern philosophy, which is know thyself. Know yourself before you can affect others. And like the Samurai, one of the books I highly recommend. Sorry, I'm just going on a huge mind dump rant here, but Samurai were
Oh, don't
taught
worry, I'm
to
a big fan of
master
those.
their samurai were taught to master their own mind and their own body before they wielded it as a weapon on other people. It's the same with many religions, which is know yourself and understand your own emotional states, your own patterns, your own self sabotaging behaviors first. And that is the most important
That's a lot to take in. Definitely a lot of threads to open up there. And the one
thing.
thing that I wanted to make sure that we got to was
Yeah,
your backstory and how you got to this point. And I think it'd be great to also tie
perfect.
in, you can use yourself as an example of your own emotional awareness and how you can, and after you do that, I also wanted to touch on to the malleability of this, especially with like the clients. Maybe you've worked with people who've reached out to you for coaching, and how much of it is understanding what is crystallized versus what is liquid and what can actually be
Sure.
expanded and expanded upon. So backstory, how you evolved to become the free person that you are today, and your own emotional journey within all of that.
Yeah, and everything's just my opinion, obviously, but this is what's worked for me. But I spend a lot of time. I'll generally spend an hour each night or every other night in my bathtub. I turn off all the lights. I turn on only a candle. I like organics, and I just notice my thoughts. And sometimes I'll even do this in my chair if I'm feeling anxious. Like a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm anxious and I'm impatient and sometimes impetuous. And what I've and I but I know but knowing that about myself allows me to take different actions. So because I'm impetuous, I wait 24 to 48 hours before making an important decision that's going to affect others. Okay. Um, or course changing, right? We're working on software and I want to add this one feature and I say, okay, hold back, John, let's wait on it. Knowing I'm impatient, I one of the things I tend to do is whenever I have some free time, I find ways to just gobble up that time. Oh, I'm going to hire a new person, or I'm going to go start this project over here. And I create long term inertia for myself. So even when I'm bored and I'm like, I need to do more stuff. Uh, I try to hold myself back from putting too much on my plate and overloading myself and holding back my business later. So those are things I do, but I guess it's noticing my thoughts. I think of them like bubbles, and I don't necessarily trust every thought that comes through my head because I know two-thirds of my brain are not necessarily conscious. And those two-thirds of my brain creep into my neocortex to make me be like, this is a horrible business. I should not take that risk. $250,000 could end up as $0, and I could buy another house with that. Like these are the things, and I have to look at things with a logical, conscious point of view. So that's what I do there. Everything is malleable, I would say. The, I mean, like at the end of the day, there are no concrete maxims, but you do see trends and patterns when you watch a lot of interviews. I'm probably closing in on like 1,000, definitely hundreds of interviews with centimillionaires, billionaires, and decamillionaires. Um, but then what was your third question?
Well, and then it was also about I get well there was two other things, which is, we wanted to hear about like your job experience and the job
Yeah,
that had really been the catalyst for a lot of this, which is kind of like it's getting into its own subject in of itself. So
sure.
we'll pin that for just a second. But it's also about how you've identified this in other people too, people that you're working with, and
Uh,
if there's been a journey for them to condition themselves emotionally so that they're ready to take on what it is that they've come to you for in the first place.
yeah. So I've personally mentored people within my company. This is years ago when I had in-house media buyers. And but I'd say I'm pretty hands-on with mentorship of the students that go through my various programs. I have a number now. We've had, I don't know, we've had like over 30,000 people sign up for programs of various training programs of mine, and I always do every week. I do a webinar with one group or the other with my students for multiple hours. So I stay I always want to stay pretty hands on to figure out what's how the training is actually passing through. What I've seen in terms of and yeah, I'd say it's good you're asking that question because I see who's successful. I see who's not successful. It's very evident to me. I'll go over a few things. So people who have more success starting their own business, um, first off, they come from some sort of background where they've done some sort of commission based or incentive based work before, where they're used to being measured on the results of what they work for, and and similarly they understand that the progress is not linear. Getting good at sales or telemarketing or door to door sales or whatever that is, all requires a level of wherewithal, because in the beginning you're not going to see much results, but after a few months you'll see. You might not make any money your first month doing telemarketing, but you might make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year after a few years. So it's again, people are more used to it coming from those professions. Coming from a wage or a salary type job, you have to be cognizant that uh, you're going to be much more prone to quitting and stopping halfway through. And as we know, you don't get the gold if you go halfway to it. All the golds, to get to the gold, you have to go all the way to the gold. Um, other things I've seen have been the easiest number one thing that separates the successful people. So I told you what separates the unsuccessful people out is that a lot of them, again, they're giving up wage and salary. The successful people, the number one thing is they surround themselves with other people working towards the same goals, or that are already, better yet, that are doing the same sort of thing. Many of this, I've had a number of students, almost a dozen now, I believe, that have earned over $1 million doing affiliate marketing, which is pretty exciting. And some of these folks, one of my students has tens of millions of dollars, just from literally coming from working a job before taking my training course, and now he has tens of millions of dollars, which is he has more money. He has more money than me now, and the reason why he and many of the other people who have made $1 million plus in this industry, or in what I train with people on, which is affiliate marketing, is because he surrounded himself with other affiliate marketers. He hung out with them. He did free work for them. He took my training course, and then he was in San Diego. He was located in a place where many other affiliate marketers are and other companies. And he went to, but a lot of people live in San Diego that aren't successful in affiliate marketing. he went the extra step to connect with those folks, to go to events, to meet people, to get there, to go through that whole awkward process of hey, I'm a dude, you're a dude, but like, maybe we can like hang out sometime and can I get your number? Cool, man, cool. I don't know. I'm thinking of that scene in Fight Club where Edward Norton was trying to ask Brad Pitt for if he could stay at his place after he blew up his apartment. Um, but people are so, again, just like Edward Norton in that movie, people are so scared of imposing themselves on the world and really truly living that they don't ask that person for their phone number. They don't ask if they could talk later. Whereas the winners, they surround themselves with people moving in the same jet stream. And even if they're further ahead, it doesn't matter if they're way further ahead, they are still in the same jet stream and they're following along. And uh, that's what makes them successful. People, proximity.
Yeah, I remember extracting that from one of the videos you had made. That was one of three about the importance of building your network and not being, not letting your network be thrust upon you by just having the
Yeah.
friends that we had grown up with or our family, both of which I have.
Yeah.
And incidentally enough, the friends that I have kept have all we've stuck around because we believe in forward momentum and we want to continue to support each other in that way, whatever that looks like. So that is massive. And nowadays being online, it's never been so easy to reach out to people and just start building a network of like-minded people.
In a way, yeah, I'd say, yeah, it's never been easier because you know where everything is, you know where everything's happening. The quality of conversation goes down, and also the noise goes up for many people. But yeah, I'd say it's just unbelievably easy to reach people, and I mean, like, and people also forget, like, there are so many really highly intelligent old people out there who have already built massive marketing businesses, massive businesses doing outsourcing, massive businesses doing finance, massive businesses doing real estate, and they're retired and they have all the time in the world, and nobody talks to them anymore. I mean, it is so, like, why try to reach Elon Musk when you can find 1,000 other billionaires who are retired that are just have nothing but free time, and they're not necessarily going to be in their email, but if you catch them in the right place at the right time, you can forge connections with really anybody who's been anywhere in life. It's absolutely incredible. It's amazing. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like what I used LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn a lot to reach out to people, and it boggles my mind how easy it is that I'm getting in touch with folks who have built multi-billion-dollar companies, and I get to talk to them for free. And they give me advice. It's just, it just, it's so crazy, and it's possible, and yeah, a lot of people don't take advantage of it. Most people don't.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I owe somebody a coffee because there's a punch card where if I say this 8 times, I owe him a coffee, which is that I mean, my this is my job, so I get to talk to people such as yourself who have such immense impact and influence on the world. I think to your point about Elon Musk, I I think you made an amazing point, and I hope people take away this that there are so many people who can help us that aren't Elon Musk. And the thing is about somebody like him is that like my exposure to him has like 90% been coincidence. Like he comes up on the Twitter feed. You've brought
Yeah.
him up. Other people bring him up. I did deliberately go watch the episode he had on on Joe Rogan, but that's because he was on my radar so much. So
Yeah.
I can't help but connect with him just because he's, he's inundated
Mm.
in my usual algorithms. So there is that some of that connection is beyond our control, but we still have much more free will to affect that, edit that, and do what you're recommending, which is to reach out to people who have the time and have already done the work.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'll kind of riff on that. I mean, what
Sure.
I've gotten into, which I love to do, this is like my new cool like social hack, is I try to find the best person ever at a specific activity. Like data analysis, for instance, or so has been my kick recently. And finding product market fit was a previous one. And I try to find all the people in the world that have found product market fit on a big scale, on $1 billion scale. Now it's really easy to name out a few of the people like Brian Chesky, who founded Airbnb, and Stuart Butterfield, who founded Slack, and some of these people, what is it? David Rusenko, who founded Weebly, right? You find these folks who have solved a massive problem in business, but you can't Google it. You can't say who are some people with interviews on YouTube who have found product market fit. And whenever you're asking whenever you're asking yourself questions that cannot be Googled, you're probably on the right track. Just with business, because you're getting in. That means you're starting to get in real deep, and finding somebody who does data analysis again. I'm looking at employees too. I'm looking at the first employees of Facebook. I'm looking at the first employees that created the algorithms at Instagram, at Google. You're looking for a very specific type of person, and sometimes they're not even billionaires. They're just they were merely an employee, and understanding how they think about a particular area within business, as opposed to what I've generally been doing is trying to understand their overall mindset, um, is massively helpful. And again, you can take that to any problem you want to solve. If it's starting a business, again, there's so many resources out there. If you search how to start a business, but the second caveat here is that if you look up how to start a business and you take advice from a random blog that shows up first from somebody who was a paid article writer for some website that does content, um, that's not you're not necessarily going to get the meat and potatoes. You want to hear how to start a business from somebody who has successfully started a business, and preferably multiple businesses before. So that's where, when you got to find, specific problems are good, but you want specific problems. You want the answers to those to be from people who have actually done it. And this goes on a whole other tangent, which is why a lot of business schools, you're learning from professors, uh, oftentimes who are not successful, um, in their own careers, doing management or doing finance or doing maybe if you want to learn how to get a finance job, you can learn from your professor who had a finance job. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, the only way to do it is you have to learn from somebody who's done what you've done before. And um, this goes on another topic of, like, I see these people that are completely unqualified to give business advice giving advice online. We have the online gurus have a whole host of people now that talk against us. And the re but it's harmful for people to take business advice from somebody who's never started a business and is just being negative. Um, so it's tricky, but who you take advice from is so critical. And it's something I spend a huge deal of time figuring out for myself.
So here's something that I'm going to ask, and this is something that I'm struggling with personally, and so I'm hoping that
Yeah,
the listeners, hopefully they have this issue too. So at least this isn't a complete um, misuse of their time, but it is for content end of the day. So what my struggle is to elevate myself to the level of the people that I'm talking to. Some of that there are solutions to that. Some of it is I've started my own online store. I'm working on my own little empire so that I will raise my bedrock and be able to not only understand the technique better, to ask better questions, um, to fear, making rent a little bit less, and just kind of like get away from the system and more be on my own free stuff, which is I know something that you're big on is freedom and breaking free
yeah,
of the system.
yeah,
So
yeah.
my question to you is, when you're reaching out to people who are, they're billionaires, you've said some of this about how you create a sense of urgency and you're very like curt with the language just to make sure that you show what you're up to, but within yourself is how do you get over, if you get over it, the that sense of like survival, that cortisol running through the system, that nervousness, because that's something I would
Yeah.
love to be able to deal with, at least get a really good grip on.
Yeah, and that survival thing, right? That's going outside of our emotional comfortability range.
Hmm.
That's really hard, and it's been. I'll give an example because I don't like giving advice. I have personal experiences that can be drawn from. Um, is for my for for when we were shifting. So last year we shifted. We made the shift from YouTube advertising to TV advertising completely. And it was simply because I am the only marketer in my company. I run a three-person company, um, and we're trying to build software at the end of the day. Or we build software at the end of the day. So I'm really kind of the odd man out doing marketing. And at shifting from YouTube advertising, again, we were spending of around 100,000 a month, and we would, or a week, I mean, and we paid that money off 30 days after the end of the month. So the terms were monthly net 30. So I made money day 7, and I didn't have to pay money back until day 60. Now, the TV works the other way around. You have to pay for your TV advertising a month to 2 months in advance. You have to pay at least a month in advance. So I went from monthly net 30 terms to negative 30-day terms, basically. Um, and that was a huge cash flow crunch because if you do the math, right, that is a pivot of about $1.2 million. Okay. That means because that is it uses a lot of cash, right? 400,000 a month, and there's a 3-month difference. So it changes the whole equation around $1.2 million. So even if I'm highly profitable on TV, it's still changing the fact that instead of me getting paid first and then having to pay my expenses 60 days later, now I get paid later and I have to pay for things 30 days up front. And that was mentally wearing on me. That was really hard. And I knew it was going to be a very difficult period because again, there's just a lot of when I'm running a business, I like, I've always run affiliate type businesses because I like if I spend money, I make money. I want to see it. I want to see it happen like right that same day. I don't want to be like waiting on like where's my money. And that was another reason why I didn't get into e-commerce like Amazon or drop shipping because again, you're dealing with, ordering stuff from you're paying for stuff in advance and waiting a month or two for it to get over from China and stocked and fulfilled. And so I just like again, I like to keep the math simple. And it was so wearing on me seeing my bank account just go down and down and down and down and down during this transitionary period while but I knew the business was profitable. I knew that every dollar I spent on advertising made me back 2 or 3 or 4. So why is my bank account going down? Right? And it turned it, and for months I was living in this survival instinct because it just, there's something there. It's like, if I'm profitable, I should be making money, but like that's not always the way all businesses work with cash flow cycles. And I'm still convincing myself of it, as you hear me here right now, because it's such a crazy concept. And I created projections for myself. I also just mentally prepared for this to happen. But the projections I put on spreadsheets allowed me to see that, okay, basically, it allowed me to see that there's going to be a 6 month period, which we are still we're at the tail end of and coming out of. There's be a 6 month period where the cash just, it sucks. And it looks like I'm losing money. But I know I'm hitting my numbers and I'm profitable and I'm getting through it. So that was really hard. But again, I had to take my emotions out of it and I had to look at the actual numbers, the money, the whatever, and really just understand the business model. That was probably one of the hardest things, and we're still in it, and it scares the shit out of me. You know, I just, I was at the bank yesterday. I sent $250,000 dollars away for more TV ads, and it just, I want my bank account to only be growing, but it's just, it's, I don't know, it just works like that.
Mhm. Well, I appreciate that before you got into that, you said that you don't like directly give advice, which is good. And I'm going to keep that in mind because I think generally it's better to hear stories and examples and stuff like that.
Yes.
So that I appreciate. And then I also appreciate the fact that, well, I mean, not that it's something to celebrate, but the fact that you can, in your position, still be in that survival is something that I look to unravel here on the show, which is, we're all human beings. And I'm certain that a lot of the people that you talk to and that you reach out to, whatever level that they're at, they're in that instinct as well because their bedrock, and this is a term I started using like yesterday, their bedrock is elevated. So for them, they have a new bottom that they could potentially get to, and they don't want to crack through that because then they lose their ability to have that influence that they're having. So it's fascinating, and I guess in some ways it doesn't really go away. I imagine even people who retire, they're when they're sitting around and they realize that they're losing time now. They're not really doing anything, and maybe the survival instinct starts to kick in that way. So it's always going to be there, and I think that is probably the most important takeaway that I could extract from it.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it's exciting. There's all these little hacks, but the more, but finding out that I could find, old people as mentors, it doesn't strike you right off the bat, or maybe it doesn't work in all industries, or maybe it does. I don't know. But again, you create your own luck. The more you're out there, the more you're trying to get deals, and the more you're setting up ads, the more you're contacting the support, Google Ads support desk, or the more you're posting in Facebook groups about specific problems you have rather than keeping them to yourself, the more you are opening yourself up to the world, and you're going to find those little gems. You're going to create your luck that way. You're not going to create your luck by holding your problems to yourself. um, you're not going to
Mhm.
create your luck by just not spending the time to do research, or to, put up ads, or to read, doing outreach or sales. You're not going to create your luck doing nothing. You're going to create your luck being out there and active and doing things that other people don't. So, that's just been, and similar to TV, right? Many people could have just looked at TV and said, $250,000 to do TV. Why don't you just, you're already running a profitable, YouTube ads business. Why don't you just keep doing YouTube ads and just do it a little bit different? But again, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So you just got to be out there. Every year I'm trying out. I try three things. that scare the shit out of me. A few years ago, it was learning to fly helicopters. Last year, it was spending $100,000 on a mastermind group, some like networking thing. Um, it was hiring an advisor, spending another six figures hiring an advisor that's an investment banker. Um, and all these things scare the shit out of me because they have no, I'm spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on all these little side bets that really have no direct any correlation to revenue. Like zero. There's zero linkage to revenue with hiring an advisor. It's like, let's listen to somebody talk for $10,000 an hour. So, some work out, some don't. That mastermind group I was in, it's just kind of a waste of time. And they're pitching us investment opportunities now. And also, COVID happened and all this stuff. Um, but the infomercial, it worked out. Right. So, like, that's my new business. And like, that's scaling. It's doing millions of dollars a year now, so it's like, but I wouldn't have found that if I didn't do those other two bets that cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars that that didn't work out. I wouldn't have had that third one, which did work out and has made me millions. So I don't know. Can I get better at it over time? Yeah, I'm sure, but I still got to take shots. I still got to take risks that scare me and that other people aren't willing to do. Um, I believe in order to really grow my business in an abnormal way.
Hmm. And there is it's not like one of the more common through lines that I observe on the program, but I have observed it is that there is a renaissance of different mediums that, while one might perceive them to either be outdated or on their way out, they actually just become revolutionized. I've talked to people in the past about postcards, sending postcards in the mail, and the tangible postcard can connect with people. You've talked about television. I talked to somebody recently about terrestrial radio. So all of these mediums can be revitalized and can be innovated in unique ways. And it's almost like the more people underestimate them, the more an opportunity there is to find what can be new.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. There's so many things that are underestimated because everybody's talking about Facebook ads. Everybody's talking about Facebook ads and drop
Yeah. Well,
shipping and
that's what we talk about
e-commerce
here for
and
sure.
and so that's what everybody's talking about. So that's got to be the best thing, right? Yeah, and yeah, you're right. But people, the problem is that yeah, it's a great place to start, but you don't necessarily need to, like you should try things again. Facebook ads is one way. Yeah, billboards and bus benches and postcards. All of these ways are ways to reach people. It doesn't matter which one works. It's not like I care whether I'm building a business that's advertising on TV or on Facebook or YouTube. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just a crash test dummy. I'm just out there breaking stuff to figure. I'm just out there trying different things because other people aren't. Other people are so they're so scared to go outside of the lanes of that training program. um and they're just so scared to go outside of those lanes that they miss out on the fun and the love of the process. And I like to think of it as a scientific process. Entrepreneurship is a scientific process. It is you create, in the scientific process, which was innovated by Isaac Newton, possibly the smartest man in the world or of our millennium. um, is back before Isaac Newton, there was like scientists just kind of like they're just kind of like mixing things together. A lot of alchemy. A lot of scientists were alchemists or chemists. They're just mixing things together, and there wasn't a process. They were just kind of like, let's see what happens. I don't know, this like nitrous oxide. We'll mix it with this metal or something. Whereas Newton, what he did and why he advanced the world in such a dramatic way was because he said, okay, first, before I embark on an experiment, I'm going to create a hypothesis. I believe if I do X, that Y will happen. And we can take the same, we should take the same thing to business. I certainly do, is I say, if I do X, Y will happen. And if Y does not happen, then I figure out what 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 was different, what changed, how was my thinking incorrect, oh, maybe there's additional variables. Maybe if if I'm profitable, if I'm 2x ROI on Facebook ads and I double my budget, I should get double the ROI. But it didn't happen. Okay, you need to look at what other variables might I be missing out. Well, there's this whole thing about the algorithm and like how the algorithm works. Okay, maybe if I just duplicate my ad group, maybe if I just duplicate my campaign, it'll work out. But again, you have to really set that hypothesis first to figure out where you're going to be wrong. And a lot of the entrepreneurs that don't do it right, again, they come from wage or salary type jobs because they're taught you do A, then you do B, you clock in and you do A, and every time you do A, B happens. Or every time you do X, Y happens. Whereas in entrepreneurship, and people who come from the wage or salary jobs, they just like flip out. They're like, I did A, B, and C, but I didn't get the result. It's all bunk, right? Their mind flips out because they can't deal with the uncertainty. But human dynamics, sales, marketing, stock trading, real estate prices, demand and supply, capitalism is a market led by human dynamics. So yeah. Well, that I've got to go. Oh, babe, I'll be out in a minute.
You got to go. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah. I've been
it was
watching the
great
clock go
talking
talk.
to you.
It is 2:59, and it's been fantastic, and I appreciate just being able to really hear your thought process and be able to share some of my own personal questions with you as well. So it's been great. I definitely got other stuff that I'd love to talk to you about someday, but we will table that for another
Have me
day.
back
And
on
for our
anytime.
listeners, I'm looking forward to it. So for our listeners, we didn't get into John's backstory, but his backstory is on his YouTube. So John, tell us how to find you on YouTube, and then we'll let you go.
Just search my name, John Crestani, on YouTube.
Okay, terrific.
Bye.
All right, take care, everybody. We'll check in soon.
Just on my computer all day, usually making videos or doing a bunch of drop.
Hey, this is Joseph from Ecomonics. Just wanted to thank you for being here and for giving this content your time and attention. I hope you learned something. I can say with certainty, I have learned something with every episode that I have done, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. There's a couple things you can do to help us out. If you want to check out the audio content, we are available on all major podcast platform distributors. And while you're there, give us a 5-star review. It helps a lot. And while you're here on YouTube, there's a lot of things you can do to help out as well. It's not going to take very long. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button for this episode, and hit the notification bell so when we have new content for you, it's going to be at your doorstep ASAP. Lastly, this podcast is created by Debutify, the best Shopify template available. It is 100% free for you to start, and it can change your life. It can make you so much more free than you are right now. So if this episode wasn't enough to convince you, I think a few more might do the trick. So have at it.